Alright, welcome to Showcase 106. We're going to jump right in today because we have some easy stuff at first. What I'm showing you right now is what I call the pre-tiled maps, which is what I see in the map editor, what a mapper sees in the map editor, so on and so forth. It's everything without the borders, as you'd probably expect with an auto-tiled system. So you're seeing everything as it's unsmooth as it can possibly be. There's no ridges on the water, etc. Doing this stuff manually takes a lot of time. And previously I had an auto-tiling algorithm, but it didn't work very well with a couple special cases. So what you're seeing now is all those special cases fixed. So this is a lot easier to use now. You can see I'm walking over this little spaghetti case, as I call it, where the tiles are very thin. And here you can see that the layering works as well. So that's grand, that's fantastic. And right here I'm showing off the difference between a 2-tile wide barrier around an object and a 1-tile wide barrier around an object, which probably means nothing to you, but don't worry about it. We also have some stairs there. I'll be going over the new assets that we added shortly. However, first, we're going to take a look at colliders as well. I briefly showed them off there, but I'm going to go up to the top map, or top left map, and show the house as well. I don't know if you remember the previous showcases, but the auto-tiled terrain, the borders and everything looks a lot smoother now than it did before. If you don't remember, you'll just have to take my word for it, but same deal with the water. It's rigid, of course, and very square. That'll probably be fixed in the future, but for right now, the important thing is that it melds very well with the grass. I'm also going to go over very quickly here colliders. You're seeing the correct version of the colliders. What I'm going to show in a second is the incorrect version, and that's not super important, but the TLDR is basically that I was designing other colliders around this incorrect player collider right here, where it was offset a little bit, so it's not super important, but I wanted to show it off anyway because it took a little bit of time. So now all the colliders work, and you can see some of the new assets like the stairs have correct colliders. We also have columns that have correct colliders now, so they don't rub you can't run into them at the top anymore, and buildings are the same way, as is the lamp. I fixed up the lamp a little bit, or street light, whatever you want to call it. All good, all cool, and I'll show off the columns in a second here. However, we're about to go on to the new assets, so I hope you appreciate those as well. That's not going to be a clip, so hope you enjoy. Okay, so we're going to take a look at some of the new assets drawn up by Wilson, which is our map artist, and as you can already see, I think most of them are very beautiful. And we'll also take a look at lighting stuff and a couple other related things in just a moment, as well as following up on the auto tiling stuff. So anyway, the most obvious thing I think that's probably what catches your eye immediately is the flowers, or are the flowers. And you can see we have 2 color variants here, but in total there are 12 flower variants. There's 6 different colors of the low density, which is right here, if you can see my mouse, and then there's a high density, which also has 6 color variations that match the lower density ones, and down here we also have some rose bushes, which of course are also matched in 6 color variations. This rock is not new for the record, but I wanted to talk about rocks because we doubled the number we have there, and well, there are some void assets that I haven't been able to touch on just yet, or I won't be able to touch on for a little bit since we're working on the beta. We have some new crystalline plants, some new crystalline rocks, a couple other related things, so I think that we have nine new versions of those, 3 plants, 6 rocks, so I'll be sure to show those off soon. I think that's pretty cool. And as you can see here, obviously we have some water sprites, or water assets. I mentioned these earlier, and I showed them off earlier as well, but you know, this is a bit more of an interesting shape, and you can see how it matches the house shape as well. We might talk about later what this looks like in the map editor, but for right now we're just going to go ahead and head inside. As you can see, we can walk inside. And this tip up here, we'll talk about tips in the clip after this one. It's kind of a small thing, but it's a cute thing, and I won't mention it right now. Whatever the case, you can see a couple things here. So first of all, we have some lanterns, and you might say, oh, this is kind of annoying. What if they get over top of me? They fade out when you cross over them, so no big deal there. You can see they have a wider lighting range, and they don't flicker like some of the other lights do. And this oven up here, which is one of the new assets, does in fact flicker. I don't think I showed off these urns before, so I included the urns today. The rug here is new as well. There's some color variations that I haven't implemented just yet for that. The cabinets are new, both the small and large one, and then the stairs down here as well. I think you already saw the stone version of the stairs. I believe it's stone, yeah. This is the wooden version. It's basically the same. It doesn't actually go anywhere. Right now, you can just walk down. There's nothing here. But it does, of course, have the colliders, as does the other one. It's not too special, but if I wanted to have it go somewhere, I absolutely could. I think that that's everything, though. All the new assets this time were focused on water and edges and fleshing out interior stuff. So in the next one, we'll have even more interior stuff. You'll notice up here that we don't have a ceiling thing like we do for the castle. tile set. So we'll have a ceiling borders kind of thing, and that'll allow us to shape insides of houses a little bit better and have them be things other than just squares. And I think I also want some more cabinets and other like stovetops and cutting boards and that kind of thing, just to flesh out everything a little bit better. And we'll probably get a ton of that stuff as soon as we can. But whatever the case, I think for right now that's okay. And in just a second here, I'll go off on a rant about tips, I guess, and then we'll talk about RP gain, or rather RPEXP gain, which will be the most mathematical thing. So I look forward to that. Alright, so this segment's going to be pretty short. It's not that special, it's not that crazy. I recently just added a tip generator, or I guess tip server, I guess you could say. It doesn't really generate anything. But you can see here it spews out some tips. Currently it's going way, way, way faster than it usually would. The actual rate that I decided was every 10 minutes it will give you a tip, and right now it's giving you one every 3 seconds or so. So obviously that is a magnitude greater of a speed than it will be in the future, but just, you know, to demonstrate how it works. Cool, nothing too crazy. The special thing about this in particular is that it's always going to serve up unique tips, which means it won't repeat tips very frequently. I think every time it gets through half the tips, it'll randomize everything, or rather it'll reorder things so that you don't see the same tips very consecutively, I guess. Now, you can pause the video to read through these. We'll probably get through almost all of them by the time I'm done this segment, which is going to be in like 10 seconds, but I wanted to just show this off because it's something that I think every game has. Basically every single MUD, RP forums even sometimes have it. MMORPGs, RPGs, etc. Everything has something like it, so I thought, you know, it'd be a cute little thing, and I hacked it out last night, so cool. What I actually want to talk about, though, is going to come up in just a second here, and we're going to talk about RP gain and EXP gain. So that'll be an in-depth topic, and it'll specifically focus on a lot of math and some spreadsheets. So if you aren't into that, I totally understand. But, you know, it is what it is, and I think that you guys would probably enjoy hearing about it at the very least, or if nothing else, checking out the changelog. So without further ado, we'll hop into that. Alright, so as always, we have a bit of a complicated section of the showcase. However, before you skip away, I'm going to implore you to stay and listen to the modifier part of this section, because I think it's really important to almost everybody that's going to be playing the game, and I think that most people will really appreciate it as well. So, first things first, this is nothing special. This is just, you can't see my mouse, there we go. This is just a changelog post that I screenshot out of the Discord, so if you're curious about that, there's a bunch of other changes that I made this update that you can check out there. Stuff I reviewed in this showcase, stuff I did in last showcase, blah blah blah. Anyway, the important thing is not that. The important thing is specifically experience gains. So there's a couple basic things that are going to be listed in detail here that I won't go over in voice because I think that you can read those and understand them pretty easily. But there are some complicated changes that I think are best expressed through me specifically or personally. So first things first, all of the basic reference stuff disregarded, we have a new function for determining EXP gain. What does that mean? It means every time you post, you get a certain amount of experience, and this function determines how much experience you get per post, right? So if you're level 1, this function says, hey, you're level 1, you get a lot of experience. I think at level 1 you actually get more than an entire level, so you'll actually come close to a second level just by one post at level 1, right? And that will drastically go down until it's at a more moderate level of about 10 or 15 posts to a level, and it continues going down until you reach around 100. And once you get to 100, if you get to 100, because most people will be expected to get to 80 but not 100, every post after that gives you 1 experience. So it becomes extremely hard to level up after the fact, but that's intended. It's supposed to be sort of like a firm cap, a bit between a soft and a hard cap. That's not what I want to talk about, though. What I want to talk about are these modifiers, right? So I've been asked a lot how we're going to be doing checks, right? And there's a lot of different ways you can do it. You can have an admin team do it, where you personally check everybody, but I think that's pretty prone to bias. Even if I was a perfect person and I tried doing that, I think I would ultimately veer towards people whose stories I liked the most, and not necessarily who is being the best role player or writer. So I would obviously bias towards the stories that I think are cool and that I like, and not the people that are making other people the happiest in the game, right? So what I'm doing with that is I'm adding a ton of new modifiers that don't really have anything to do necessarily with like story or like what you're doing in battle, but like what you're doing with other role players or roleplay in general. So you can go ahead and read through these, you can pause, whatever, but the gist is if you're RPing with newbies, if you're RPing in a group, if you're RPing relatively quickly, like in a a normal rate, basically. And if you're RPing of decent size, or if you're RPing first, or if you just came back from a long break, you get a big bonus, that kind of thing, right? I just want to promote people's good experience. So if you put the function that I'm going to list in the Discord after this video into a calculator, you'll probably realize it's pretty low by base. It's really difficult to get to level 100 by base EXP mounts alone. Don't panic though, because I'm anticipating most people will be getting at least like 10% of a bonus from this at all times almost. Because, I mean, if you think about it, even if you're RPing with one other person, you're getting a small 1% bonus just off of that, right? And that's if you're only RPing with one other person. So I don't think that you should take the base values to heart, really. Now, that's the gist of that. I'm going to go ahead into a little bit more in-depth stuff in a second here. So, like I said, I implored you to stay, but now you can head off if you so choose. There's some other stuff I'd like to go over that I think will go over a lot of people's heads just because it involves a lot of math and numbers and crap that people don't like. So, first up, I've graphed this function, the function for EXP gain. It's probably kind of intimidating at first. It's what's called a sigmoid curve, which is also related to the sigmoid colon, but that's not what we're talking about here. Specifically, we're talking about what it looks like to look at the level EXP gain. So what you're seeing is basically the x-axis is your level, and the y-axis is the amount of XP you gain per post. You can see when you're at level 1 to like 10-ish, 20-ish, you're gaining a crazy amount of XP, and that immediately tanks. So by the time you're level 14, 15, 16, it starts to taper off, and then after that point, it starts to go into a slow slide down to about 100. And once you hit 100, it might look like it gives you none, but it's actually just floored at 1. So you can't go below 1 XP per post, at least. That means that at 100 plus, roughly speaking, I don't know exactly, I guess it's like 1.7, yeah, 1.7. Once you're at 107, sorry, not 1.7, you'll start getting a really difficult grind to the next level, and that's intended. You're not meant to be going really far ahead, and I'm sure that the people like Yina or whoever that do that anyway will have no trouble getting through that regardless, but whatever the case, that's the idea, that's the goal. Now, you might say, well, that's great, it looks fantastic, nice graph for me, but that doesn't mean anything to me, not much anyway, and I would commend you for saying that because it doesn't mean anything to me either. What means something to me are spreadsheets, and here you can see exactly what I'm talking about. So I've graphed a couple things. 80 is, or I've spreadsheeted, I guess you could say. I think graph is better. I've graphed a couple things here. Like I said earlier, 80 is the intended quote-unquote late game, so like most people should be able to get to 80, right? And as a result of that fact, we have a total post count of 931. I should note over here, these are characters, but this is assuming that you write on average 1,000 characters per post. This could theoretically be double what it is if you're writing longer posts, or half of what it is if you're writing shorter posts. So it's just an assumption, right? There's no actual character requirement. In addition to this, I have this over here, which you can use to test out modifiers. You can see if you have somehow plus 50%, which is very unlikely, you can see exactly how long it takes you to get from different places with a certain modifier. This is more likely to be about 10% though. That's 1%, 10%. And you can see with 10% it drops pretty significantly. If you're curious, in Eternia 1, I don't know about Spires, but Eternia 1, you would need about 1,005 or 1,050 posts, not 1,005 posts, to get to level 200 or RPL 200. So that's not really super important, but it's a good metric for other people that are familiar with RP games. And you can see the scale here as well. So to get to 100, it takes about the same amount, a little over the same amount that it takes to get to 80. You can see that more specifically here. So if you're trying to get to 100, you can see very clearly that it's going to take you about as long to get to 100 from 80 that it took you to get to 80 from 0, right? And to get to 110 is considerably more. You're going to be doing about 5 times as much work to get from 100 to 110 compared to getting from 0 to 80 or 80 to 100. And that's, again, intended. It should be very hard to get there. So I hope you guys understand that. I think it's pretty straightforward if you know the context, but I'm not particularly sure. When the game releases, I'll probably have this in-game so that you can calculate your own EXP gain at any time, or I think I definitely will. But whatever the case, if you were curious, I'll probably post this spreadsheet online somewhere where you can view it and see any changes I make to it. This is what I've been using to toy around with it. And you can see it goes up to 110 currently because I don't anticipate people getting much further than that for a very long time, or at all, really. And this is just another metric for seeing specifically like at level 5 it takes 1 post to get to a new level. At level 12 it takes 6.3 posts to get to a next level, and so on and so forth, as well as some interesting information here about the XP per level as well, or per post rather. So I think that's cool. I think that's all well and good. You probably get the idea here. Early on, obviously, it's giving you a ton of XP, and then later on it starts to drop off pretty significantly down here. And again, completely intended. That's sort of the idea. So I hope you guys appreciate that. And if you're curious about that or have any questions, feel free to ask. I know a lot of people have concerns about this, but so far I think I've quelled almost all of them. There's a lot of other information I can't go over very quickly that I think contributes to most people's opinions. So again, if you're curious, feel free to ask. I love answering questions about this kind of stuff, so absolutely. And I think that's everything for today. It's been going good. I think we're almost there, as I always say. I mean, I always think that. Outfits will be soon. I finished working with the base, I think, a bunch. It's much lower frame rate now, which I think people will enjoy. It looks a lot better. It's grown on me quite a bit. And I think once that's completely done, or rather it is kind of completely done already, I'll start having one of my artists draft up some outfits and put them on and see how that looks. That's really the only barrier remaining, next to maybe maps, and that's in progress right now. So, very cool. Anyway, I think that we're good for today. I think that's everything. I don't know, I can't think of anything else I wanted to talk about. There's certainly something that I'll forget about, but whatever the case, I hope you enjoyed. I hope you have a good week, and I hope you look forward to the next showcase. Bye.